I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, me militia? I'm Mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not trying to save the love of my life from an ancient blood-sucking evil, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comments, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And on this episode, I'm going to be reviewing my final film of 2024, and that is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. And saying that I have been hyped for this movie since it's been announced is an understatement. But before we get started, please, if you like this video, like it, and if you liked it enough, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button so you never miss an episode. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get movie news, channel updates, and all forms of badassery. So was the wait worth it? Is the hype real? Did Robert Eggers hit another one out of the park? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. In Gothic Victorian Germany, a newlywed bride is haunted by visions and foreboding doom from an ancient evil that comes to take her and the rest of the world. So, for those of you that don't know, this movie is essentially Dracula. It is 100% a ripoff of Dracula. And that's not an insult. So, the whole backstory of this is a remake of a silent film, possibly the oldest silent film that we have still preserved to date, which is Nosferatu. So the whole backstory behind this is these guys in Germany wanted to make a Dracula adaptation. The Bram Stoker estate told them no, so they did it anyway. And they just changed around a few of the names, but they stayed very faithful to the story. Fast forward a few years later, in the 70s, you get an adaptation. And then fast forward a little bit more, and you get an adaptation that's kind of meta, where the original actor, Matt Schreck, is actually a vampire. Not in real life, but in the movie, he's an actual vampire because a lot of people thought that he really was a vampire back in the day. Now in the present, enter Robert Eggers. And for those of you that don't know who Robert Eggers is possibly one of the biggest up-and-coming directors of this generation. He started out with a lot of success with his first big hit, The Witch. Then he moved on to a very strange tale of isolation with The Lighthouse. Then he went to a Viking revenge epic with The Northman, and now he gets a crack at Nosferatu. And from what I understand, this movie is what he wanted to do after The Witch, but some stuff happened in production and it just never got off the ground. Well, after the success of The Northman, he finally got his shot, and he definitely delivered. So starting out with the positives, once again, just like with every Robert Eggers movie, the guy is a stickler for period accuracy. And what I mean by that is, wherever time period the movie takes place in, he wants to be as accurate as he possibly can, from the architecture to the costume design to the dialogue to literally every little detail. He wants it to be as spot on to that era as he possibly can. And this movie is no exception. The only thing that he did differently is the movie takes place in Germany and it's not in German. That's the only thing that he skipped when it comes to being accurate to wherever or what era he is actually doing in his film. And he absolutely knocks it out of the park in this one in that category. There's a scene in the movie where the main character, played by Nicholas Hoult, stumbles upon this village and there's gypsies everywhere celebrating, doing their gypsy things is the best way that I can put it. And if you actually look up that stuff, from their clothes down to the little dances they're doing to the songs they're singing, all this stuff's pretty period accurate. And again, that's just what we expect from Robert Eggers at this point. Going hand in hand with the period accuracy is the cinematography. This is a visual masterpiece, and that's not me overhyping it, that's not me over exaggerating it. It's just a fact. This is probably one of, if not the best looking movies I've seen this year. The only other movie that comes to mind is Alien Romulus, with the vast shots of space where they recreated what it would be like in space. and Doom 2 with its amazing visuals as well. But Nosferatu's right there with them, if not better. There are several scenes where you can actually see this genius level of like foreshadowing in the smallest way, but in the grandest nature, if that makes any sense. One shot in particular is when Nosferatu finally arrives in Germany, when Count Orlok, I should say, finally arrives in Germany. There is this scene, you see it in the trailer, where his hand, the shadow of his hand is descending over the city that he's in. That shot is absolutely fucking incredible. It's just this big foreshadowing of the doom that is about to befall this town or this city. There are shots in the castle, or should I say right on the journey to the castle, where Nicholas Holt's character comes to like this crossroads in the forest, and the only thing that is lit is the moon lighting the way right above the crossroads. It's very eerie looking, and you actually see this coach and horses coming his way to pick him up and take him to the castle. And that shot in itself had me on the edge of my seat. As small and minute of a scene that was, just the way that Eggers captures, I've said it before, this haunting atmosphere it's just a sight to behold. There's also other little techniques, like, for instance, when Orlok projects his shadow to communicate with the female lead that is played by Lily Rose Depp in this movie. He projects his shadow, so all you see is a shadow. Like, for instance, it's also in the trailer where the curtain is flying flowing with the breeze, and you can see his shadow, but he is not there. And those shots are also just incredible. I can honestly sit here and talk about how incredible the cinematography in this movie is and how visually just satisfying I found this movie. Another one of the big positives of this movie and the biggest appeals of this movie is how Robert Eggers makes vampires terrifying again. Now, I know that we do get a vampire movie every now and then that kind of gives us this animalistic version of vampires, or these real cold and calculated versions of vampires. But here in the recent 20 to 25 years, vampires have honestly been confined to either the more positive side of action films or just creature features. But what they are more widely known for nowadays is romantic movies, where like teen romance movies like Twilight. So vampires, although there are some gems here and there, one being Abigail that was also released this year, vampires have kind of been put on the back burner and kind of considered the red-headed stepchild of monsters now. The only second to werewolves has vampires really been just shoved off to the backfield and just used to make a quick buck in a teen romance movie. But not with Robert Eggers' vision. He made Count Orlok absolutely terrifying. And I'm not saying that this movie had me scared. I'm not saying that this movie genuinely had me worried about vampires. But I can tell you that this movie made vampires eerie again. It made them creepy again, and more importantly, it made them powerful again. Count Orlok, as of right now in modern film, is probably the most powerful vampire we have seen to date. This guy can do anything, to the point that I would actually love to do a Monster Manual episode on him and kind of break down his character and what he can actually do, because he is truly incredible when it comes to his power. We see him do things like manipulate the weather, manipulate animals, astro project. He can send his shadow out to do whatever he wants to do. He has this immense strength that can't be overpowered. Just a plethora of crazy, wild powers and hardly any weaknesses. And I loved that Robert Eggers made Count Dracula the monster again in this movie, even though he's not going by Count Dracula, he's going by Count Orlok. And to further piggyback off of how Robert Eggers treats this vampire, I know that a lot of people, especially people on YouTube that review movies like I do, one of their biggest letdowns of the movie was the overall appearance of Count Orlok. And I can tell you right now, I actually really liked it. Because if you go back in Dracula lore and you actually study the history of the character and how the character was developed and everything, you know 100% what Eggers was going for. And with him being a stickler for historical accuracy, it made so much sense with the design that he went with. And I don't want to get into spoilers. I really wish that I really want to, but I don't want to spoil this movie. I want people to go see this movie. Now, you never get a full look at his face. He's always shrouded in darkness in some way, shape, or form, but there are points where you get to see more than you don't get to see, if that makes any sense. And when you see it and you know that history and see what he was going for, it's awesome. And it's probably one of the most unique versions as far as look-wise goes when it comes to Dracula. And if you're curious to know what I'm talking about, just look up the origins of Dracula's character and what he is based on. The moment that you see, probably the first Google search picture that you see, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about after you watch the movie. Because it was like undeniable the moment that I seen it. I was like, that's what he was going for. And it makes 100%, knowing him as a director and his style, I knew exactly what he was doing with that. Also, to piggyback off of that, and I like to piggyback off of other points. The cast in this movie is phenomenal all around, but starting out with Bill Skarsgård playing Count Orlok. If you wouldn't tell me that Bill Skarsgård is in this movie, I would have no idea. Like 100% would not know, because he is literally unrecognizable in not only appearance, but in his voice either. Like, this is the biggest transformation that an actor's done since he did Pennywise, or since Colin Farrell did the Penguin. Like, I don't think, even if you've seen him not shrouded in darkness, full blown in the daylight with the makeup on, you have no idea that it's Bill Skarsgård. And you have no idea hearing his voice that it's him either. And he just brings this evilness to this role that, again, this character has been missing in cinema for a very long time. You, without a shadow of a doubt, know that this is evil incarnate. And I absolutely love that they did that. I'm going to continue to harp on how Robert Eggers just made this ancient vampire so fucking formidable and so creepy and scary. From the voice choices that they used, to the dialogue, to how he carries himself, to how he monologues, everything. He is evil incarnate. As far as the rest of the cast goes, Lily Rose Depp, quite honestly, stole the show. She is incredible. Her performance in this movie was very demanding, and she completely rose to the occasion. She deserves so many kudos and so many. She needs to be nominated for Best Actress and Best Female Performance, because she brought everything to this role, from a physical standpoint to an emotional standpoint, and all the while kept everything that Eggers wanted her to do as far as acting like she is from this time period, and from the dialogue down to the way she dressed and everything. Her being that emotional and that physical in this role, and still maintaining that persona that this is like 1700s Germany, lights out, phenomenal. Also, Nicholas Hoult was very, very good in this movie. Nicholas Holt's getting to that point now where he is becoming one of the big dogs in acting. Like, he is the next big thing. Him and a small handful of other actors have just came out of nowhere doing these small roles, and now they're taking these bigger roles, and it's really paying off for them. because, man, you really get to see him shine in this movie. And I can't wait to see what he brings to the table when he plays Lex Luthor in the new Superman film. There's a couple of scenes where he's interacting with Orlok, because as you know, in the story of Dracula, the character that he is portraying goes to Dracula's castle so that he can secure an account with him and make all the money for his real estate firm, because Orlok is buying a manor in Germany and they hold the deed to that manor. From the moment he enters the castle to sit down at the table and talk with Dracula, he 100% looks like he is coming out of his skin. He is so scared. Like, it's undeniable when he lays eyes on Orlok for the first time and Orlok is speaking with him very sternly and very aggressively. He looks like he is about to shit his pants. He is crying. He's doing everything that signals, I'm going to die. I have no hope of getting out of here. I'm going to die in this castle. And Nicholas Hoult just knocks it out of the park with that one. Other supporting acts, you got William Dafoe playing the Van Helsing-esque character. Of course, he's not called Van Helsing, but right at this point, what is it that you don't expect from William Dafoe? The guy just, every single performance he has, he is just chewing the scenery. He's having a good time and he's giving it his all. So I know it doesn't matter what role he is. He could be playing the voice of a dog that talks, and he is going to absolutely kill it. One of the best actors of our lifetime, and his talents are on full display in this movie. Also, Aaron Taylor Johnson's in this movie, and it's really crazy seeing how great he is in this movie and how awful he is in Kraven the Hunter. So with that being said, I kind of owe him an apology, even though I didn't really shit on him in my review for Kraven the Hunter. I just know that all the awful dialogue that he had, it was not his fault, because he is absolutely phenomenal in this movie as a supporting actor. Moving on to the plot, I haven't read the story of Dracula in a long time, so I am a little bit rusty, but from what I remember, they pretty much follow it very accurately in this movie. And again, that's one of the things that Robert Eggers is known for. The scale of this movie is so epic to be in such a confined space, if that makes any sense, because you're only really interacting with a small group of people that are aware of what's actually going on in this story. And for it to be such a small group, they do a good job of making the scale seem huge and the stakes seem really high. Like, this group is not the only one that is going to have to suffer the consequences of Orlok entering Germany and pushing his influence everywhere. So I've sat here and I've talked about all the positives, but are there any negatives? The only really big negative that I can give this movie is its pacing. It is a slow burn. It, again, doesn't feel like it's like too slow, but it's enough for you to recognize that, hey, I've been watching this movie for 2 hours or more. Because, again, he's so methodical in the way that he presents these stories that you see the casual build up to everything. We spend almost an hour, it feels like, getting to actually seeing Orlok in his castle. The majority of the movie is kind of built on building up whatever this evil is that is plaguing Thomas's wife. And then I feel like once we get to the castle that Orlok resides in, I feel like it then picks up a little bit, and then after we leave that location, it slows down again, but not as much as it did in the first act, if any of that makes any sense. And probably the only other negative that I have about the movie, and I really wouldn't consider this a negative, it's kind of just one of those tropes that, although they are kind of at this point, even if you're going for a period piece, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, guys, we know this is bullshit. We know that after seeing so much evidence and so much so much like of witnessing these horrendous acts and these supernatural acts, that there's no way that there's people that still doubt what's going on. And Aaron Taylor Johnson's character kind of has that problem. He's the only one in the group, and mind you, there were two doctors in this group. So two educated gentlemen that are fully convinced that they're dealing with a vampire. And here you are, you got Aaron Taylor Johnson's character who just cannot wrap his head around it, even in the event that tragedy befalls him and his family. He's still somewhat in denial, and he still can't really believe what's going on. And I found that to be unbelievable, even in a horror film or a film in general. At some point, you gotta say, all right, man, we're dealing with a fucking vampire, and I just have to accept that. No, he pretty much goes almost all the way up to the end believing that, nah, this ain't a vampire, this is something else. This is all hogwash, all of it's not real. And that just felt like a little bit of weak writing to me. That's all I got to say negative about this movie. This movie lived up to the hype. I think it's fantastic, and I'm not overhyping this movie. I really think this might be the best Dracula adaptation that we've gotten in years, if not the best one. A lot of people are comparing the grand scale of this film to the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula from the early 90s. Now, I'm overdue for a revisit on that movie because although I like it, I do find it to be a little overrated, but I can see what they're talking about because that Dracula was on a very, very grand and large scale. And this movie feels like that too. Honestly, when I heard that they were releasing it during Christmas, I thought, that's not good, because normally movies that are released around Christmas time usually aren't good because they don't have any faith in them, or they're family friendly and they're saving them so families can go out and see it for like a Christmas tradition or something like that. But releasing this movie around Christmas time actually works in its advantage because there are Christmas elements to this movie. So Nosferatu is not only a fantastic movie and a fantastic vampire film, an epic vampire film, but it's also a Christmas movie. So now you have another movie that you can watch every year for Christmas. Is this movie one of the year's best? I think it is. In fact, it's actually shot way up on my list. It could be biased because I've seen this the most recent, but I've been going back and rewatching movies from this year because I'm building my top list and the top best and top worst of the year. And I can honestly say that this movie is one of the best movies I've seen this year. It's going to be really hard not to put this movie in my top 5. So that is a testament of how good this movie is. So with all that being said, Nosferatu gets a 4.75 out of 5 and is 100% Grizzly grade guaranteed. Please go see this movie. This is definitely one of the best films of the year. If you're a horror fan, you kind of have to go see this movie. So go out to your theater and go see it and witness it for yourself because it is a epic. So that brings this episode to an end. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, like it. And if you like it enough, please go to my channel and subscribe now and hit the bell button so you never miss an episode. Also, once again, please follow me on all social media platforms so that you can help me grow my brand. You can get movie news and channel updates. I should have my best of and my worst of 2024 episodes coming up at the beginning of the year, so stay tuned for those. I look forward to doing those because I love to look back in retrospect at all the good that we got and then all of the fucking awful we got too. So we're going to have some laughs, we're going to have some gripes, and we're going to have some joy and celebration of these great movies and these bad movies. So stay tuned for all that. And remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.